Welcome to part two. Julian, the big John Fury interview on TalkSport, he's saying that Tommy's putting him in hospital and he's icing them. Two have been out cold. What do you make of that? Do you think that some of these guys might come out and say that they sparred Tommy?
I mean, the one fighter I do know he sparred was Danny Christie, because I follow Danny Christie on YouTube. I like his stuff. Now, Danny
Fighter,
Christie,
isn't he? Good fighter, isn't he?
he's a hard lad, isn't he? He's not a professional fighter, and he would say that himself.
Did you
He's
see
a
that
hard
fight
lad.
with Decker, him and Decker?
Unbelievable, mate. It was,
well, all right. You know, if that had been on a show or something, and that they'd have been raving about it, wouldn't they?
it was savage, wasn't it, mate? Whatever you think about those guys, they're two incredibly tough men. So when I saw Danny Christie talking about his spar, I was very respectful about the Furies and really appreciative. But I didn't notice any eye sockets smashed or jaws broken, or I didn't see him in a slinger or body cast or anything like that. So maybe it wasn't Danny Christie, but who's been getting hairline fractures and smashed to pieces, and who's been going to hospital after sparring with Tommy Fury? Because there's a couple of things to that. I mean, one thing, seen enough sparring over my lifetime, including all levels, including absolute elite level. You get a few injuries naturally. You don't get that many, not that many at all. And I've seen fighters drop.
What is it doing? Butchering people, Tommy, in that?
That's the thing. You've seen more injuries. You've seen more hospital jobs in Tommy Fury's 100 rounds of sparring, which said he's done 100 rounds, than you've seen in my entire career, watching 20 odd years coaching, watching people spar. There's been more. So it's interesting. And there's another thing. If that is the case, you don't treat your sparring partners as punch bags. You learn off them.
Maybe these people can't come forward because Tommy's put them on planet Jupiter like them 100 that John knocked out on the hard road, 100 by way of.
You know what you just say? You say, look, and I hope Tommy Fury's looking well, by the way. I hope he's in great shape. I want him to prove that, boxing.
I'll be cheering for Tommy this time for once.
I'll be cheering for Tommy. Absolutely want Tommy to win.
Tommy, smash him to bits. You're in my accumulator.
Honestly, just for boxing's sake, Tommy, just absolutely drill him, because
drill this yank.
Yeah, hammer him. It makes it look the sport a joke if he gets beat. But what John Fury said, I don't know, I haven't got John Fury, but he mentioned that Tommy's promoter or the people who are looking after him were a bit of a joke because he'd only had 8 fights in 4 years. So whilst I fully agree with what John is saying, my understanding was Tommy was in Love Island, he was chasing YouTubers, he's getting injured. Are you just going to blame Frank Warren? Are you going to blame his manager for everything? Or are you going to take account for the fact that his last fight, for example, was way too heavy, contract was a joke, so he had to have an exhibition? At what point are you going to be accountable, Tommy and John Fury, for the fact that he's only had 8 fights? Is it just Frank Warren's fault, Francis Warren, or are you to blame as well?
Yeah. Okie dokie. Tony Bellew was saying Tyson Fury's on slide and that Usyk's a complete boxer. Blah, blah, blah. Is the fight going to happen? We don't know. But now they're saying it's off, aren't they now? So what's like? What do you think? If Tyson Fury and Usyk don't happen, the heads are going to roll, aren't they? Because how can they put? We haven't signed up for this, have we? Tyson fighting another tickover, Joshua fighting Franklin a tickover. Wilder's going to bury Ruiz, isn't he? I mean, what's happening here? Joe Joyce fighting Zhang. Nobody's taking a challenge, are they?
I was talking to Max a while ago, and I said, look, this is just my opinion, yeah, and from a personal point of view, this is where I am. And I'll keep talking about walking away from boxing. I've done it before. There are 4 things that need to happen in boxing for me in the first part of this year. Otherwise, people will walk away from boxing in their droves. The first thing that needs to happen is Usyk and Fury need to fight. We need an undisputed champion in the Premier Division in boxing. The second thing that needs to happen, again, is we need Davis and Garcia to fight. It's a mouth-watering fight, and it's just going to make people just absolutely just love that fight. It'll be a brilliant fight. It'll be, reminisce about all the great fights. That'll be we need it to happen. because it's red hot is that fight. Third thing we need is, as I mentioned, I think we need Tommy Fury to win. I never thought I'd say it, but we need Tommy Fury to beat a YouTuber. We have to have that happen. And the fourth thing that we need to happen is Conor Benn has to get some kind of punishment for this. Otherwise, if those four things all fall through or don't happen like they should happen in the righteous way, people are going to be walking away from boxing. What does that say about boxing if we can't deliver? I mean, we've already failed on Spence and Crawford, haven't we? So that's gone. What's it saying if we can't deliver these mouth-watering big fights, and if people who are doping are allowed to just fight and don't need recognition from the border control or whoever, and if YouTubers can just come in and just take over our sport, what's left, Russell? If all those things I've talked about, what's left?
Well, it's frightening, isn't it? But if you've got a spare 20 quid, Tommy Fury against Jake Paul's a score, mate.
Well, I've got a spare 20 quid, but it's not going to go on that, mate. I'll buy the kids a McDonald's this weekend. I'm not going to, or next weekend. I'm not going to be paying for that fight. I'm not a hypocrite. I'll wake up on Sunday morning and I'll jump on YouTube and see what's happened. You know, I'm not going to lie and say I've got zero interest in it, because I'm kind of morbidly fascinated by it, but I won't be paying for it.
Yeah. What about Bricktop's role in all this? Because he said it was nailed on for last Saturday in April, 10 days ago on TalkSport. Now,
well, disappointed. I'm so disappointed in Frank Warren, and I'll tell you why. Because Frank Warren was massively critical of Eddie Hearn with the Fury and Joshua fight, announcing we're almost close, 90% done, 95% done, 99% done. In a week's time, we'll announce it. 48 hours, we'll announce it. 24 hours, we'll announce it. And Warren was so annoyed at Hearn for doing that. And Frank Warren's doing exactly the same. We're this close, we're that close, we're that close. We're only interested, Frank, when the fight's signed and it's done. We have a date, we have a venue, and it's signed. We're not interested in these build-ups, these incremental announcements. It's a joke. It's not on till it's on. It's as simple as that. So Frank's doing exactly what Eddie Hearn did, and that's exactly what he criticised Hearn of doing. They're all the same, mate. None of them's any different.
If Usyk Fury don't happen, who's Fury fight?
Well, what we have found, realistically, Fury can fight anybody he wants, and people, or a good portion of people, will love him and pay to see him, because we've just seen him against, well, I didn't watch it and I still haven't seen it. We saw him against Chisora, didn't we? A fighter who, yeah, is allowed to box his Derek, but whether he should still be fighting at a high level is very questionable. And a guy who he dominated so much and destroyed so much, actually southpaw as well, not in his natural stance. And Fury still did that fight and sold 60-odd thousand tickets, was it, at Tottenham? So we might say Fury has to fight Usyk, but the truth is, Russell, it doesn't. Fury can fight who he wants. Do you know why? Because we're all still watching this pantomime, mate. They haven't done the fight we wanted at heavyweight, have they? They've not delivered the fights we wanted. And I've talked about this before. They didn't give us Joshua and Wilder. They didn't give us Joshua and Fury. And now we might not get to see Fury and Usyk. So whilst we've had big fights in the heavyweight division, we're not getting the fights that we really want, that define. What is the question right now in the heavyweight division? Who's the number one heavyweight in the world? And even though we think it's Fury, it's not been legitimately answered, has it? We haven't had a undisputed number one at heavyweight since the days of Klitschko.
Yeah.
Disgraceful.
Yeah, it is, mate. It's Lennox Lewis, wasn't he? Last undisputed, wasn't he?
Lennox, yeah.
20 years ago.
I think sometimes, you don't have to be undisputed. Like Larry Holmes was universally recognised as the heavyweight champion, but there was always WBA and then subsequently WBC champions. But these 20 title defences sort of stood for themselves, didn't they? Whereas Fury's not got those kind of numbers, has he? He fights once a flood, and Tyson Fury's successful heavyweight defences well, is that three now?
Yeah.
Wilder, Dillian White, and Chisora. It's hardly Fraser, Foreman, Ali, and Norton, is it? That was on Ali's ledger.
No, it isn't. And his CV's very poor to say he says he's a GOAT.
I think they've all got thin CVs, mate. I think all the heavyweights have got thin CVs right
Tyson
now.
needs a few more wins. He's got to do Joshua, he's got to do Joyce, and he's got to do Usyk, and then he's in mix, isn't he?
Yeah, I think Fury's number one. I think he's
Yeah.
my,
It's
my
not his
view is
fault though that there's not many challenges, is there? Is it?
no, but it will be his fault if he doesn't fight Usyk, won't it?
Yeah. Oh, you'll get hammered if he don't fight Usyk now.
Yeah,
They'll
because
high jump, but they'll turn on him.
I mean, I do think I'm being generally sometimes I come across as a bit dour and a bit cynical. I do think he'll fight Usyk. I do believe that.
What about Ngannou? They're talking him, aren't they?
Again, it's a novelty fight, isn't it? It's just one of those daft things that seem to be creeping into boxing more and more.
He's bricked up even bothered though because Usyk's next in line. He's got to fight Dubois.
Well, the problem that you've got now is even though I think Fury beats Usyk, I genuinely do think he beats him with a bit of room to spare. It is a risky fight. You know, if you look at it logistically and put everything on the table, it's a 60-40 fight. Now, they'll want paying a hell of a lot of money and a hell of a lot of, small details of the contract to fight Usyk. And they sounds like that's what's delaying things is the money. But you can fight Usyk for 40 million or whatever. Or you can have 15, 20 million and fight 10 mugs, can't you? With a 5% risk that you're going to get beat. And I think it depends on how much money matters to them, how much legacy matters to them, and what route do they want to take. I mean, Fury openly says, doesn't he? I'm not bothered with a fight. I just want to fight. I just want to train. I need to train for various reasons. I need to train. I need to be in camp. I need a purpose. So I think I think he'll fight Usyk, but if he doesn't, I think he'll fight somebody else, and people will pay for it. People won't care who Tyson Fury fights because he's got a massive following. It's a bit like Anthony Joshua. People are saying that if Joshua beats this other guy in April, then he needs to have a big fight. I think Joshua could just still have 4 or 5 fights, and Eddie could still sell him. It's the big brands, mate. The big brands, massive brands.
Would you put it past Bricktop putting Tyson Fury in with Ngannou and then a month later putting Dubois in with Usyk?
Wouldn't surprise me at all because the win-win situations, aren't there? I mean, Fury against Ngannou, it's a joke, isn't it? It'd be an absolute massacre. It'd be a massacre. And then if Josh fights Usyk, he's a big enough lump to have a chance in that fight. And even if he doesn't win, you've still got the option, haven't you, of the unification with Usyk and Fury. So it's a win-win for Frank Warren, no matter which way he goes. And I think that's how they view things now, isn't it? We don't look at one big fight. We look at 5 or 6 fights that may or may not take us to deliver us to that big fight. And I think that's what I've just said. Do you want to earn 20 million 6 times, or do you want to earn 60 million once?
See what you mean. The Saudis, why do you reckon it's gone sour then there, Julian? You think it's Fury's demands and
definitely
not left for Usyk, and do you think they're trying to
look
for a way out and Price sends out?
Well, Fury will know what Anthony Joshua got paid for the Usyk rematch, and I think Fury
72 million, wasn't it? 72 mil.
Exactly, and it might have been Terry or Rico who said this on your channel, and I thought, that's a really good point. That Fury will want to be paid more than Joshua, irrespective of what Usyk's getting. He'll want more than Usyk, of course, but because their egos are so big, if, like you just said, if AJ got 72 million, then Fury's going to want at least another 20, 30 million on top of that. It's an ego thing. I'm not fighting for less than you paid an ex-champion, AJ, who had just been dismantled by Usyk. I ain't fighting for less than him. I want substantially more than him. And I think that's the sticking point. I think Fury is asking for a hell of a lot more than he was asking for a hell of a lot more in Saudi Arabia. which is why they've pulled the fight now.
Do you think we might
Maybe,
be, yeah? Well,
maybe, just maybe they think Anthony Joshua is more of a draw in Saudi than Fury is. I don't know. I don't follow the figures and the numbers and the revenue, but maybe AJ is still the biggest financial draw in boxing. I don't know.
well, there's something not right because if Tyson's regarded as main man, he's got to be giving Joshua money, and he surely. I mean, we have to put what we think about certain fighters aside. If he's the man, why aren't you getting that money?
Absolutely, and I'm not suggesting for one minute Anthony Joshua is a YouTuber, but you know, did Anthony Yard, for example, a few weekends ago, did he get as much as Jake Paul's getting? He didn't, did he?
No.
It's mathematics, isn't it? It's how much you bring to the fight in terms of how much money you bring to that fight, and how much, not just the boxing, the live gate. What about promotions? And what
like
about
Lomachenko, look at his skills and that, but he won't get in mega dough. What if
No, not at all. Lomachenko wasn't getting mega dough at all. And it's all to do with the draw, isn't it? Is how much money do you generate, from sales, promotions, to brands, to the whole package, views, the whole package. And that's where maybe I'm slightly arguing against myself, but I do think AJ, not to you and I don't think he's one of the best 3 or 4 fighters in the world right now at heavyweight, but I still think AJ is a massive brand. He's huge.
Yeah. What do you think to Lawrence Okoli and Riak Porte's handbags at the Creed 3 carry on? Do you think that were a put-up job? I think it was.
Do I think it were a put-up job? I'll tell you what. Think about this now. Anybody who thinks it was genuine, right? Remember Herbie Hyde against Michael Bent?
Yeah, that wasn't a put-up job.
They had a right go. Remember Mark Kaler against Errol Christie?
Errol Christie, they had a go as well.
In the street, right hands, full on. They punched hell out of each other in the street. Yeah. I'm talking.
They got a 10 grand fine, didn't he, Mark Kaler and Errol Christie?
Yeah. So what we're saying now, right? If you think about this, Richard Riakporhe and Lawrence Okoli, 2 world-class fighters, 2 trained boxers, 2 massive punchers, can't land a shot on each other, and then you get like Spence, like that in between them. But you get two or three guys, 10, 11 stone guys holding two men that who want to have a fight each other. Do you think you and I could split Riakporhe and Lawrence Okoli up? No, too big. They'd push us out the way like we didn't even exist, and they'd go at it.
All I saw were Spencer Fearing in his anti-Elton glasses. See him in the Elton John glasses. I saw Spencer Fearing jump in the middle of it and calm it down. He was like the Godfather, Spencer Fearing. He played.
Spencer Fearing was laughing. I saw him laughing. He was laughing like that. He knew it was staged. It's a big joke. But I mean, what you got to say is, look, first of all, Riakporhe and Okoli both can fight. Both are gentlemen. They're nice kids. And how do you? And I'm trying to be respectful here. Like you've said, I definitely wouldn't open my curtains if Lawrence Okoli was fighting in the back garden, right? And Richard Riakporhe, even though he's got some good skills and some good power, he puts shots together nicely. He's hardly exciting to watch himself. He's a bit awkward and a bit ungainly. And these 2 fights, this is going to be a horrendous fight. It's going to be a hugathon. It's going to be awful. The styles are not going to gel. And it might make Carlos Delane and Johnny Nelson look like fight of the year. Honestly, I think it'll be.
No, it could make that look like fight of the year. No, they had to smuggle Johnny Nelson out of Sheffield under a blanket. And last time that happened, they caught the Yorkshire Ripper.
Didn't they land 7 punches in the fight or something like that? But you know what the point I'm getting is, you're going to have to do something to make people want to watch that fight and pay for it, especially if it's pay-per-view, aren't you? So what do? Fake beef. It was absolutely as staged as it comes. 2 fighters go at each other. You know what? Like we just said with Michael Bent and Herbie Hyde, before people could even get close to them, they're letting shots go on each other's chin. Genuine.
Yeah, it's madness, isn't it?
It's that Tony Bellew and Nathan Clever rematch. Remember that WWE style?
Yeah.
build up and flipping tables and throw. It's just rubbish. It's pathetic, actually.
Do you remember the Stig? He's been on some of my videos. Have you ever seen him? The Stig.
You mentioned him before, yeah, yeah.
The Stig. Is the Stig about to return to Porky's Corner? That's the question. I keep getting emails asking me when's the Stig coming back.
Was he the guy who you interviewed in a pub a few times?
Yeah, I went down. I went down to see him. He lived in Surrey, in a posh area.
Good.
I went to see. Jimmy White's his neighbour.
You joke, Jimmy
He's
White.
a character. He's only a cabbie, mate, but you don't see a poor cabbie down there, do you, mate?
No, you don't, mate. The old whirlwind, Jimmy White.
It's got to be the class old Stig. We'll stick Stig on a thumbnail for this, so bring him back into the fold.
Let's get the Stig back. We want him back. I remember.
A character, the Stig, Julian. I like it. Hey, listen, Dennis always bigs him up. Him and Dennis get on. He's been to a few shows in that Stig. Him and Dennis get on like a wildfire. But yeah, he's a good.
What happened? Did he just stop coming on because people get busy?
He got involved in other things, and I think he might have got a bit disheartened with boxing and that. But I'm getting the feeling that Stig might be coming back.
Well, Big Richard was the same, wasn't he? He got fed up of it, didn't he?
Big Richard, yeah. But, hey, little Richard now he's about 18 and a half stone now.
He's still a big lad, mate.
Yeah, hey, listen, he's looking well, mate. He's looking well. Right, there's boxing on at weekend. Ben Davidson's charge. Lee Wood, he's rolling dice. He's got to be given credit. He's fighting this killer Lara. What do you make of that, Julian?
I've not thought about it too much in terms of who I really think is going to win. But what I will say, reading all the comments on DAZN and IFL and people's predictions, there's way too many people writing Lee Wood off in this fight. And I think Lara's almost like a 2-1 favourite. I'm like, I see that as a competitive, hard fight. That I don't think that's an automatic Lara victory. No, what you got to think about is style-wise is this. Okay, Lara's a real big puncher. Yeah, of course he is. But Lee Wood has got more tricks up his sleeve than Josh Warrington. I'm not saying he's a better fighter than Josh Warrington. I'm saying he's got, you think of Josh. Josh is all action. He'll stand in front of you. Okay. And, he did have a bit of a big layoff when he fought Lara. He got absolutely annihilated. But Lee Wood is a different type of fighter. He can switch. He can punch. He's a good counter puncher. He's not just going to run in there. And what we've got to see, we've seen Lara is an absolute wrecking machine. But all wrecking machines look effective when you stand in front of them. And we saw that with Lara's last fight. He blew that guy away in 3 rounds, but he just stood in front of him and traded with him. You might get a different result than people think on Saturday night. So I'm not going to. Well, I generally don't sit on the fence, to be honest. Do I? I'm genuinely will tell you. I think instinctively, without breaking it down too much, I think Lee Wood might win that fight. If he doesn't, the difference will be the 10 years in age, because the lower weight fighters sometimes, he had a brilliant fight with Conlan, but you don't know how many fights he's got left in him like that at 34 years age. And sometimes a hungry 24-year-old Mexican won't be denied. But I have a sneaky feeling that Lee Wood might win that fight.
Well, he's obviously got that grit in him, hasn't
he? He's tough, and he's got resilience. And we know he can do 12 hard rounds. And Lara, like I say, Lara looks fantastic, but I'm not going to dismiss the 2 losses he's had. I know he got stopped in the first round. He was only a kid, wasn't he? He was quite young. There's no big deal getting stopped. It happens. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see Lara when he's fighting somebody who's also a puncher, because no disrespect, Josh Warrington's not a puncher. So he didn't have the power to compete head on with Lara, did he, in that first fight? So Josh isn't a puncher, but Lee Wood can punch. He doesn't have a massive knockout ratio, but we know he can punch. He's got heavy hands. And let's see how good Lara is when he's being given angles, when he's getting counter-punched, and he's letting his hands go, and there's not something in front of him. I think it's a tricky assignment. Either way, it wouldn't surprise me who wins that fight. But I'm all right. I'm going to stick my neck out and say I think Lee Wood just about wins that fight.
Yeah. Well, if he wins that fight, do we take the L plates off boxer size Ben?
Well, listen, I'm gonna look. I don't really know Ben, so I'm not gonna rip him too much, and I'm not. But I still believe, and this is what you always say, and I think there's something in it, right? I want to see the kids come through with him. You know, you got a Josh Taylor, and you got Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders. The brilliant fighters who probably 99% of their blueprint and their DNA is already ingrained in them. So you can't really add too much to them. I thought he took something away from Josh Taylor. I really did. But he's done a good job with Lee Wood. Lee Wood, when Ben Davison started with him, it wasn't really a great shakes, was he?
Yeah.
And he's had that massive ascendancy in his last 3 or 4 fights. So we've got to give him a lot of credit for that. But I want to see him bring some kids through. That's my own personal view.
Yeah. Adam Azim, he's had the big Olympic gold medalist build up. Sorry, he hasn't got an Olympic gold, but he's had the big Olympic gold medalist build because he was a top decorated amateur, one number one at welterweight and all that, wasn't he? Where do you see him going? Because he didn't look that fantastic about to match the hype the other night.
I think Azim's a good fighter. I've made no mistake or no secret of thinking he's a good fighter. I think it's a good thing to have 10 rounds under your belt. It wasn't a hard 10 rounds because there wasn't a lot coming back, was there?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. I mean, he's only 18 months in the pros, so let's not be too hard on him. But Anthony Joshua should have had some 10 rounders like that. It has certainly stood him in better stead when the fights got hard later on in his career. If I was Azim, carry on doing what you're doing. Don't be under pressure to continually step up too much until you're ready. If you're ready next year, you're ready next year. If it takes 3 years, it takes 3 years. I'm not going to knock a man too much for winning on points. It was a very clear decision. His opponent wasn't great. He didn't have a massive power, but it was durable. It was cagey, and he managed to survive quite a heavy knockdown. I'm not going to knock him, Russell. I'm just going to say, listen, it's going to take time to, you know me, I'm always talking about the development of boxers. The problem what you've got with Adam Azim is because of the build-up he's had, he's now main event, isn't he, on Sky every time. And I sometimes think people should be allowed to do their apprenticeship lower down on the undercards. Even Ray Leonard and Thomas Earns, when they were learning their trade, they weren't main eventers. Yes, there were TV coverage, but they weren't main eventers. But now, because we've got such a shortage of talent in boxing, such a shortage of really exciting kids coming through, they're thrust into the limelight. So we're looking under the microscope to find errors, to find weaknesses, and I think it's too harsh. I think whenever I've been asked to train fighters over the years, and when I've looked at kids, I've always advised them. I'll give you an example. It's Campbell Hatton's different. Campbell Hatton didn't have the pedigree. But for me, the worst thing that they've done with Campbell Hatton is they've put him on the spotlight on Sky, haven't they? He's nowhere near Adam Azim, by the way. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute they're even in the same town. But if you look at Campbell Hatton, thrust onto Sky, Sky box office shows, massive venues, live, didn't do him any good. And I always said with Campbell Hatton, what he should have done was he literally should have had 3 or 4 years under the radar on the VIP shows with Steve Wood. Even if he would have got beat, he might have got beat by some of these journeymen, by the way, some of these UK journeymen, tough fighters, but he would have learned his trade like Matthew Hatton, didn't he? Matthew Hatton learned his trade on those smaller shows. And that's what I would have done with Campbell Hatton. And that's what I would do with Adam Azim. The problem is now he's got the exposure. There's a thirst to see him, a real thirst to see him in with a test. And you don't learn your trade like that. It takes years. We were saying earlier about Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. It takes years to become a fully developed, finished object. And as I repeat myself, but this is the challenge that we've got. We've got a shortage of main eventers now, and we've got all these shows on DAZN and Sky and everything else. So what do? We're putting kids in the spotlight, and I think it's the wrong thing. I think that's why I kind of prefer what they're doing with Dennis McCann. He's not a main eventer right now, is he? He's still kind of sat a little bit down the bill by a couple of fights. It's the best way.
Yeah. Mark Efron, British and Commonwealth champion, world ranked. He's on a roll. Billy Joe's on about coming back. He's obviously Billy Joe's not going to go for a world title straight away. What about that for a fight?
That'd be a hard fight, though. Mark Efron, for example, is massive at the weight, isn't he? He
Yeah.
physically is a big, strong lad.
He's like a mule.
And well, that's the thing with Mark Efron. He's one of these who's probably a 7 out of 10 for everything, and maybe 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 for power. He's just a big physical lad who's a hard, long night.
He's still got some learning to do, though, hasn't he? Really, he could still improve on a lot of things, couldn't he?
Yeah, he's a good fighter, isn't he? I'm going to get this wrong now, but he's already got 1 loss on the record, hasn't he? A couple of losses. It doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything. You're ready when you're ready. And I think Efron's a good fighter. I think there's too much talk about Billy Joe Saunders coming back, to be honest. I think it's gone on forever. Billy Joe Saunders, even before he fought Canelo, was fighting once a year. That tells you everything you need to know about Billy Joe Saunders. He was really brilliant fighter, brilliant stylist. But Billy Joe Saunders was the IBF champion for 5 years. And in 5 years, a world champion didn't beat anybody. That tells you all you need to know about Billy Joe Saunders' aspirations. He's earned good money. He earned, 5-6 million for fighting Canelo. If he comes back, it's just because he needs a few quid. I think he wasn't hungry and he wasn't dedicated when he was a world champion. So what's going to change now?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And if Billy comes back, he can't just come back and say, "Oh, I want to fight him in a pay-per-view." Eubank 2. Who's going to buy into a Eubank 2 fight if Eubank loses to Smith?
You just got to be active. You got to be active, and you got to be in the gym all the time.
It'd be just using boxing, wouldn't it, for paydays, wouldn't it?
I mean, did you see the size of him like about 6 months ago?
I seen the size of him yesterday on an interview with Johnny Nelson on a pod. He looked big like.
I saw him doing some body sparring a few months ago, and he looked about 15 stone. He looked absolutely massive. And I just thought, wow, I mean, you can't get it back, Russell. Look, we always say this, right? I'll mention him again. 2 fighters always come to mind. Yep. Floyd Mayweather and Bernard Hopkins. Yeah. Neither of those fighters were my favourite fighters, but they're both brilliant fighters, both great fighters. Anybody who says they weren't great is talking rubbish. Both of those fighters lived such a clean, teetotal life. What did they both have? They had longevity. Yep, exactly. They were still really good fighters in the late 30s, early 40s, and they've got longevity because they lived the life. Yeah. Look what happened. Like Billy Joe Saunders, to give an example. So look at Ricky Hatton. We all know Ricky Hatton didn't live the life. Ricky Hatton was, after he'd lost to Floyd, he was already on the slide. Yeah. You saw it in the Luis Collazo fight, a couple of other his fights.
He was on the slide before then. When Dennis had him, when he had that close one, he had a close one with somebody, I forget now.
Urango and Collazo, those guys.
One of them, he had a close one anyway. And his old man panicked, Ray Hatton panicked, and then Dennis and Bob Arum had a deal. Look, there's 25 million here, 3 fights. Then we'll go for Mayweather. We'll get you through these 3 fights. But they were like, no, we might lose in them at Mayweather, money's gone. So really, the shot that sends him foot.
And then look at what happened when then Hatton did come back. As I've just said, like Saunders, you've all that inactivity, you're putting all that weight on, then suddenly you go into a fight against a decent operator like Zinchenko, and you boil yourself down. The first thing that you lose is your timing, and the second thing that you lose is your punch resistance. That's what happened to Ricky Hatton, and it'll happen to Billy Joe Saunders. I don't care who you are. If you don't live the life consistently, you can't take that kind of time out of boxing and just expect to perform. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah. I'm going to give Dennis an high five here. When Dennis did Vegas with Hatton, they got this band from Sheffield to go up there, and he were paying them to go up and down the strip all day and all night with that thing. There's only one, and they were going around, and everybody in Vegas knew about it. So it made it bigger than it were. Do you know what I mean?
I remember watching the 24/7 HBO series, brilliant. And the atmosphere when Hatton was fighting, it was brilliant, electric, wasn't it? Even when he was fighting Luis Collazo and Castillo, the atmosphere when Hatton was fighting was electric, absolutely electric.
They'd never seen nothing like it, the Yanks.
it was unbelievable. He took over Vegas, didn't he? It was just fantastic. And yeah, the one thing they got right with Ricky Hatton was the hype and the build up and the PR and
Yeah.
growing the fan base. They were fantastic at doing that.
We're trying to please everybody. He burnt his tonight, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's it. And Hatton
Ended
was
up a
shocked.
boozer.
32-year-old who was shocked to bits, wasn't he?
Bit like Riddick Bowe. He was shocked to bits at 28. Well, them Burger Kings he had.
Lifestyle, yeah. Riddick had a big appetite, didn't he? And that's what I'm saying, mate. Lifestyle.
Yeah, bit
Can't
like
do it.
you, Max. Max, I know you're listening, Max. Bit like you, Max. Sparring and then going KFC.
Doesn't happen, mate, does it? You don't put diesel in a Lamborghini, do you?
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
saying
I'm gonna hang
Max,
on.
I'm not saying you're a Lamborghini, mate.
Hey, this is a good one. Max training with Chris Medley, stopped at Chris's and tucked into a pizza straight after training. First time with Chris. Chris, can you imagine?
Chris Smedley, what did he make of that? Max,
Chris,
come on.
well, Chris would have thought, well, he's not going to win a British title.
As long as he enjoyed the pizza and it was Domino's. I love a Domino's pizza.
But a pepperoni, Max.
Meteor, Max, eh?
Good old Max.
Bless
We
him.
love Max, don't we? Team
Oh,
Max.
Max is great, and he's got some gonads on him, hasn't he? You can say
Hey,
whatever you want.
listen, we've seen him spar Torrance.
He'll have a go, will Max? Yeah, we did, mate.
Poor Max, bless him.
Well, he's a good lad.
Are you training him, Julian? Are you going to help him out?
I said, I'll do a bit with him, but I don't train anybody full time, as you know now. Or when I say full time, I mean 4 or 5 times a week. I just won't do it. In fact, I got a message last night. I won't go into detail, but I showed my lad. Someone asking me if I'll train 3 pros, and I just like you always think, you know what? Should I do it? Should I go back into it? But you're just doing it for no reason, Russell. Do you know what I mean? You know what boxing's like, unless you're absolutely brilliant and you're a massive ticket seller and you got good,
You're behind ball, aren't you? Straight away.
No chance. You got no chance, mate. You got absolutely no chance. So it's too soul destroying.
And another thing, it's not the sport that kids are wanting to take up now, is it?
No. Listen, I told you, my lad started boxing when he were 10 or 11. Club wanted him to do a skills bout. It was pretty good. I'm not just saying to his dad, it was pretty good. He had the dexterity, the movement, and I said, nah, carry on playing football. And I forced him to pack in, mate. There's nothing great comes out of boxing for 99.9% of the people. It's a really hard, long road. It's a hard career, tough career. Every boxer pays a price, massively pays a price with the health, neurologically. Even fighters who get out of there, relatively safely, you all pay a price. And you do it for the memories and the glory, and you do it for, to go down in kind of history, like Gary Sykes, we mentioned, who Dewsbury's only ever British champion, the only one from Dewsbury. So that's something what's amazing, isn't it? That will never die. That will never go. But you pay a price.
Yeah. Okie dokie then. Well, listen, thanks for coming on, Julian.
My pleasure, mate. Anytime.
Have a great weekend.
Will do, mate. Will do.
All the best.
Speak soon, Russell. Cheers, buddy.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. You've got 2 hours there, isn't it? 48, 1 hour, 20 minutes. So, tuck in, get your popcorn ready. Big shout out, Welcome Estates, Spartan Demolition. And that's it. I am off for a hot bath. And I'm going to watch Straight Outta Compton. Booyaka! With a bar of chocolate, a dairy milk. Peace out.